Welcome back to Historical Narratives. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Let your shoulders sink into the bed beneath you. Tonight we are going somewhere very far away, somewhere quiet. We are going to drift through the world of the samurai. Not the world of battle and shouting you might expect, something softer than that, something stranger and more beautiful. We'll speak of armor and silence, of tea and swords, of poems written before death and gardens raked into perfect, endless lines. There is nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to hold on to. Just let the words move over you, like water over smooth stones. If you find comfort here, in these long, slow evenings of history and quiet, a like or a subscribe helps this little candle keep burning. But that's for tomorrow. Tonight is only for resting. So settle in. Let your breath grow long and even. The gate is open now. Let's step through together.
Number 1. The word samurai did not always mean warrior. Let that settle over you for a moment. The word did not begin with swords. Long before the age of armor and clashing steel, the word samurai simply meant one who serves. It came from an old verb meaning to wait upon, to attend, to be present beside someone of higher rank. In its earliest form, it described a court attendant, a quiet presence at the edge of a room. Only slowly, over centuries, did the word gather steal around it. The warrior came later. The servant came first. It is a gentle thing to remember in the dark that the fiercest of Japan's legends began not as a fighter, but as someone who simply stayed close and served. Number 2, Bushido, the way of the warrior, was not an ancient code. You might imagine it carved into stone 1,000 years ago. It wasn't. The famous code of Bushido, the moral compass so many associate with the samurai, was mostly written down centuries after the great age of samurai warfare had already faded. It was less a rule book followed in the heat of battle, and more a memory, polished and shaped by later generations trying to understand what their ancestors had stood for. Much of what we now call Bushido was gathered and refined during long stretches of peace, when swords rested in their sheaths more often than they were drawn. Scholars and philosophers wrote of loyalty, of honor, of duty, weaving together fragments of older customs into something whole. So when you hear of Bushido, know that you are hearing an echo of an echo, a code remembered as much as it was lived. Number 3, samurai were first and foremost mounted archers, not swordsmen, not yet. In the earliest centuries of their rise, the defining weapon of a samurai was not the sword resting elegantly at his hip. It was the bow, a great curved bow, taller than a man, fired from horseback with astonishing precision. The way of the bow and horse, they called it. Long before Hollywood taught the world to picture a samurai gripping a katana, the true image should have been a rider thundering across a field, releasing an arrow mid-gallop, the string singing behind him. The sword would have its turn. But first, there was the arrow, flying quiet and true through open air. Number 4, the samurai sword was not always curved. Picture for a moment a straight blade, heavy, plain, The earliest swords used in Japan were straight, modeled after continental designs brought across the sea from China and Korea. It took centuries of careful forging, trial, and refinement before Japanese smiths developed the elegant curve we now recognize instantly. That curve wasn't decoration. It was function, born from a particular way of folding and tempering steel. The curved katana, the one that lives in imagination and film, arrived relatively late in the story. Earlier warriors carried something plainer, something less like a legend and more like a tool. Even legends, it seems, had to grow into their shape. Number 5. A samurai's honor could rest more heavily on his family name than on himself, not on his own deeds alone, on generations before him. In feudal Japan, identity was rarely a solitary thing. A samurai carried not just his own reputation into battle, but the weight of his ancestors, his clan, his family's long and often fragile honor. To disgrace himself was to disgrace those who came before, and those not yet born. This is why lineage was recited before duels, why family crests were stitched carefully onto banners and armor. A single warrior was, in some sense, never truly alone. He moved through the world trailing centuries behind him, like a long, quiet shadow. To fight for oneself was almost beside the point. One fought for the name. Number 6. Not all samurai were men. Let this one rest gently in the dark. Though history's popular memory paints the samurai class as entirely male, women of samurai families were trained in combat as well, particularly in the use of a weapon called the naginata, a long pole topped with a curved blade. These women, sometimes called onimusha, were expected to defend their homes and households if the men of the family were away at war or had fallen. There are records of women fighting in real battles, commanding forces, defending castles under siege. Their stories are quieter in the historical record, but they are there, waiting like moonlight behind cloud to be noticed. The way of the warrior was, at times, worn by daughters as much as sons. Number 7. A samurai's rank could be lost overnight. Status was never entirely safe, never fully settled. A samurai who displeased his lord, who failed in his duties, or who was simply unlucky in the shifting winds of politics, could fall from grace with startling speed. Some became ronin, wave men, masterless samurai adrift without a lord to serve. It was considered a kind of quiet tragedy, this drifting. Ronin wandered the countryside, sometimes taking odd, work, sometimes turning to banditry, sometimes simply walking, searching for a new lord willing to take them in. Their swords remained sharp. Their purpose did not. To lose one's master was, in many ways, to lose the shape of one's own life. Number 8. The samurai class made up a small fraction of Japan's population. Not the majority, never close to it, despite dominating so much of Japan's stories, art, and imagination. Samurai were always a minority. Most people in feudal Japan were farmers, spending long days bent over rice paddies, their lives governed by seasons rather than swords. The samurai existed above this world and depended entirely upon it. Their rice stipends, their swords, their silk robes, all of it traced back to fields worked by hands that never held a blade. It is a strange, quiet truth. The warriors who shaped so much of the legend were sustained, always, by the patient labor of people history barely remembers. Number 9. Samurai armor was designed to be beautiful as well as protective. Not just function, also art, lacquered in deep reds, blacks, and blues, laced together with colored silk cords in intricate patterns. Samurai armor was often a striking visual statement, as much as a defense against arrows and blades. Some suits bore golden crests. Some featured horned or antlered helmets meant to intimidate or to honor a deity. Craftsmen spent months assembling a single suit, weaving together hundreds of small lacquered plates called kazing, bound by silk, lacing in colors chosen for meaning as much as beauty. Deep indigo, crimson, soft, pale gold. Even preparing for death, it seems, could be an act of artistry. Number 10. The samurai helmet could weigh as much as a bowling ball, heavy, resting always on the neck and shoulders. Some ornate helmets, called kabuto, were fitted with elaborate crests, horns, or even sculpted creatures rising from the crown, meant to make a warrior instantly recognizable on a chaotic battlefield. Underneath the decoration, the helmet itself was iron, layered and riveted for strength, wearing one for hours through long marches and longer battles was its own kind of quiet endurance. A warrior's neck grew strong not from swordplay alone, but from simply carrying the weight of his own protection, hour after hour after hour. Even safety, it turns out, has its burdens. Number 11. 2 swords, not one, marked a true samurai. A pair always together. The daisho, meaning big little, referred to the matched set of swords a samurai was entitled to wear, the long katana and the shorter wakizashi. Only samurai were legally permitted to wear this pairing, making the daisho a visible, unmistakable symbol of rank as they walked through town. The katana was for battle, for open confrontation. The wakizashi served closer purposes, used indoors where a long blade was impractical, or in matters far more private and solemn. Together, they were carried everywhere, slept beside, rarely out of arm's reach. 2 blades resting quietly at the hip, saying without words, "I am who I am." Number 12. Sword making was considered a spiritual act, not just a craft, not simply metalwork, something closer to prayer. Japanese swordsmiths, called tosho, often underwent rituals of purification before beginning their work. Some wore white robes similar to those of Shinto priests. Forges were treated almost like small shrines, and the folding and hammering of the steel was performed with a kind of devoted, meditative focus. The process itself was extraordinary. Steel was folded again and again, sometimes thousands of times, creating thin layers that gave the blade both strength and flexibility. The resulting pattern in the metal, called the hamon, shimmered like mist along the edge, unique to every blade ever made. No two swords in all of history ever looked quite the same. Number 13. A well-made katana could take months to complete. Not days, not weeks, months. Between folding the steel, shaping the blade, tempering the edge, and finally polishing it to a mirror shine. A single sword could take a swordsmith and a team of specialists many months of careful, patient labor. Polishing alone, done by a separate craftsman entirely, could take weeks by itself. The final polish revealed the hamon, that wave-like, cloud-like pattern along the cutting edge, formed by the way the blade had been selectively hardened in fire and water. Some patterns looked like waves, some like falling snow, some like drifting clouds over still water. A sword, in the end, was less made than it was slowly, patiently coaxed into being. Number 14. Samurai swords were often named, given names like companions, like old friends. Particularly fine or historic blades sometimes received individual names, passed down alongside stories of the battles they had seen, the hands that had held them. A sword with a name carried more than sharpness. It carried memory. Some names spoke of beauty, art, hers of terrible legend, of blades said to thirst for blood, or bring misfortune to those who carried them carelessly. Whether myth or truth, these stories gave the swords a kind of second life, one that outlasted any single owner. A blade could outlive its wielder by centuries, still whispering someone else's story. Number 15. Not every samurai could afford fine armor. Wealth mattered, even here, while elite samurai serving powerful lords might wear elaborately lacquered, beautifully crafted armor. Lower ranking or poorer samurai often made do with simpler, plainer equipment. Some pieced together mismatched armor from various sources, patched and repaired across years of service. The gleaming, perfectly matched suits of armor found in museums today often represent the wealthiest end of the samurai class, not the average experience. Many warriors fought in far humbler gear, their courage no less real for the absence of gold lacquer or silk cord. Legend remembers the shine. History remembers something plainer and just as brave. Number 16. Samurai sometimes fought with weapons other than swords. Spears, chains, iron fans. Though the sword holds the imagination, samurai were trained in a wide range of weapons. The yari, a long spear, was often more practical on an open battlefield than any blade. The naginata, with its long shaft and curved edge, offered reach and versatility. Some warriors even carried kusarigama, a a sickle attached to a long chain and weight, meant to entangle an opponent before striking. There were also iron war fans, tessin, capable of both signaling troops and delivering a surprising, solid blow at close range. The samurai, in truth, was less defined by one single weapon than by a wide, patient mastery of many. Number 17. Armor was often removed to fight in extreme heat. Even warriors, it seems, felt the summer during brutal, humid Japanese summers. Some accounts describe samurai shedding heavier pieces of armor before combat, prioritizing mobility and endurance over full protection. Heat exhaustion was as real a danger on some battlefields as any blade. It is a small, very human detail, easily lost beneath the grandeur of legend. Warriors sweated. Warriors grew tired in the heat. Warriors made quiet, practical choices about comfort, just as anyone might. Even legends needed, sometimes simply to breathe. Number 18. Death to a samurai was not something to fear. It was something to prepare for every single day. Central to the philosophy many samurai were taught was the idea of living each day as though it might be one's last, not in dread, but in readiness. Some samurai texts advised beginning each morning by imagining one's own death in vivid detail, so that when death finally came, it would arrive as no stranger. This was not meant to be grim. It was meant to sharpen life, to make each ordinary moment feel deliberate and full. A cup of tea, a walk beneath cherry blossoms. All of it mattered more somehow when held against the quiet certainty of an ending. To think of death daily, they believed, was simply to finally, truly live. Number 19. Cherry blossoms became a symbol of the samurai's short, beautiful life. Petals falling, perfect, brief. Cherry blossoms, or sakura, bloom in Japan for only a short time each spring before falling gently to the ground. Samurai culture came to associate this fleeting beauty with their own lives. Brilliant, honorable, and often cut tragically short. A samurai who died young and bravely in service to his lord was sometimes likened to a blossom falling at its most beautiful moment, rather than fading slowly and unremarkably with age. There was something almost comforting in this comparison. A short life, lived with intention, was not seen as a loss, but as its own kind of perfect shape. Beauty, they seemed to understand, was never about lasting forever. Number 20. Seppuku, ritual suicide, was considered an honorable death, not a defeat. Not shameful, the opposite in fact. Seppuku, sometimes known in the West as harakiri, was a highly ritualized act performed under strict, formal conditions. It allowed a samurai facing capture, disgrace, or a lord's command to end his own life on his own terms, with dignity intact. The act was accompanied by careful ceremony, white robes, a final poem composed in the moments beforehand, a trusted second standing by. Far from chaotic or desperate, it was slow, deliberate, and solemn in a culture that prized honor above almost everything. Even the ending of a life could be shaped into something dignified. Number 21. Samurai often composed a death poem in their final moments, a last, quiet piece of themselves. Known as jisai, these short poems were composed just before death, whether on a battlefield, in preparation for seppuku, or simply while facing old age. Many followed traditional poetic forms, brief and carefully structured, often drawing on images of nature. Falling snow, doctor, ifting clouds, the turning of seasons. These poems rarely spoke of fear. More often, they carried a kind of gentle acceptance, even gratitude for the life that had been lived. Some samurai composed theirs years in advance, revising them quietly over time, the way one might tend a small garden. In the end, many chose to leave behind not a shout, but a whisper. Number 22. Loyalty to one's lord was considered more important than loyalty to one's own family, in theory. At least, that was the ideal. Bushido placed enormous emphasis on loyalty to one's daimyo, or feudal lord, sometimes above even loyalty to one's own parents or children. In practice, of course, human beings rarely lived up perfectly to such ideals, and countless stories exist of samurai torn between duty to family and duty to their lord. Still, the ideal itself shaped behavior in powerful ways. Samurai were expected to serve without hesitation, to place their lord's well-being above personal safety or even personal happiness. It was a heavy kind of devotion to carry, heavier, perhaps, than any armor. Number 23. The story of the 47 Ronin remains one of the most famous tales of samurai loyalty, a story of patience, of waiting, after their lord was forced to take his own life following a court dispute. A group of 47 samurai became Ronin, masterless and disgraced. Rather than act immediately, they waited quietly for nearly 2 years, allowing their enemies to believe their anger had faded. Then, in a single coordinated night, they avenged their lord. Afterward, knowing the law required their own deaths as consequence, they accepted their fate calmly, composing final poems and facing their end with the same discipline they had shown throughout their long wait. Their graves, still visited today, are quiet proof that some stories never really end. They simply grow older. Number 24. Samurai were expected to control their emotions in public. A calm face, always, displaying excessive emotion, whether fear, anger, or even overwhelming joy, was seen as a lack of discipline, unbecoming of a true warrior. Samurai were trained from childhood to maintain composure, to let their inner world remain hidden behind a steady, unreadable expression. This did not mean samurai felt nothing. Poetry, painting, and private writings from the era reveal warriors capable of deep tenderness, grief, and longing. But such feelings were, in public life, folded quietly inward, like a letter placed gently into a drawer. Stillness on the outside often held entire oceans, unseen, underneath. Number 25. A samurai's word was considered as binding as a written contract. To speak was to promise. In a culture built heavily around honor, a samurai's spoken word carried enormous weight. To break a promise or to lie brought a shame that could follow a warrior and his family for generations. Many samurai considered a broken vow worse than death itself. This is part of why oaths, when given, were given so carefully and so rarely broken. A warrior's honesty was, in many ways, as sharp and as valuable as any blade he carried. Some things, it seems, cut deeper than steel ever could. Number 26. Most of a samurai's life was spent not in battle, but in peace. Long stretches of quiet, ordinary days, especially during the centuries-long peace of the Edo period. Many samurai spent far more time on administrative duties, study, and ceremony than they ever spent on a battlefield. Some went their entire lives without ever drawing a sword in true combat. Days were filled instead with paperwork, calligraphy practice, tea ceremonies, martial arts training that rarely saw real use, and long hours of quiet study. The image of constant warfare, so vivid in film and legend, belonged mostly to earlier, more turbulent centuries. For long stretches of history, the way of the warrior was, in truth, mostly the way of waiting. Number 27. Samurai were expected to be skilled in the arts, not just in war. Painting, poetry, music. A truly accomplished samurai was not judged by swordsmanship alone. Calligraphy, poetry, painting, and the tea ceremony were all considered essential parts of a well-rounded warrior's education. To be skilled only in violence and nothing else was seen as incomplete, even crude. Many famous samurai left behind beautiful ink paintings, delicate poems, careful calligraphy scrolls. Their hands, capable of holding a blade with lethal precision, were just as often found holding a soft brush, moving slowly across paper. Strength in this world was never only about what a hand could destroy. Number 28. The tea ceremony was considered a form of spiritual discipline for samurai. Slow, deliberate, sacred. Chanoyu, the way of tea, involved precise, ritualized movements, the careful cleaning of utensils, the exact folding of cloth, the slow whisking of matcha into a gentle green foam. For samurai, this slowness was the point. In a life shaped by sudden violence, the tea ceremony offered a space of complete, unhurried presence. Some tea rooms were built with deliberately small entrances, forcing even the most powerful lord to bow low, sword left outside before entering. Inside, rank briefly dissolved. There was only the tea, the room, and the quiet company of others. For a little while at least, the warrior was allowed simply to rest. Number 29. Samurai children began training extremely young, sometimes before they could read. Training in swordsmanship, horsemanship, and etiquette often began around age 5 or 6, though the intensity increased steadily through childhood. Discipline, obedience, and endurance were instilled early, long before a child could truly understand the philosophy behind them. Alongside physical training, young samurai were taught calligraphy, classical literature, and the moral teachings that would later form the backbone of their adult conduct. Childhood, in this world, moved quickly toward purpose. There was very little time, it seems, simply to be small. Number 30. Samurai households valued silence as much as speech. Quiet was its own kind of language. In many samurai homes, unnecessary chatter was discouraged. Conversations tended to be measured, deliberate, chosen with care, rather than spoken freely. Silence was not seen as empty or awkward, but as a comfortable, even respectful space. This preference for quiet extended into architecture as well. Homes were often designed with soft wooden floors, sliding paper doors, and gardens meant for still contemplation rather than lively gathering. Sound, when it came, was gentle. Water trickling over stone, wind moving through bamboo. In such a home, even silence had its own soft texture. Number 31. Bathing was an important part of a samurai's daily discipline, not simply for cleanliness, for clarity of mind. Many samurai valued regular, often communal bathing as both physical necessity and quiet ritual, a chance to wash away not just dirt, but the tension of the day. Hot water, wooden tubs, steam curling softly upward into cooler air. Some samurai believed bathing helped restore calm and clear thinking before important decisions or the next day's training. It was less indulgence and more maintenance of both body and spirit. Even warriors, it turns out, needed to simply sit still in warm water sometimes and breathe. Number 32. Meals were often simple, even for high-ranking samurai. Rice miso soup, pickled vegetables. Despite popular imagination of lavish feasts, the everyday diet of most samurai was modest, centered around rice, miso soup, fish when available, and preserved vegetables. Extravagant meals were reserved mostly for special occasions or high ceremony. This simplicity was, in part, philosophical. Excess in food, like excess in emotion, was seen as a small failure of discipline. A samurai who ate too richly, too often risked softness of both body and character. There is something almost peaceful in this thought. That greatness, so often, was built from very plain, very quiet meals. Number 33. Samurai gardens were designed to feel larger than they actually were, an illusion gently crafted, using techniques like carefully placed rocks, borrowed scenery from distant hills, and winding paths that hid the garden's true boundaries. Samurai and their garden designers created spaces that felt endless, even within small plots of land. Every stone, every tree, every raked line of gravel was placed with intention. Nothing was accidental. A garden was, in its own quiet way, as carefully composed as a poem or a painting. To walk through one slowly was to feel, for a little while, as though the whole world had grown soft and unhurried. Number 34. Sleep itself was treated with quiet discipline by many samurai. Rest, they believed, prepared the spirit as much as the body. Some samurai texts encouraged calm, unhurried preparation for sleep. A clear mind, steady breathing, a release of the day's tensions before lying down. Sleep was not seen as wasted time, but as necessary renewal, essential to clarity the next day. There is a strange, gentle comfort in imagining warriors centuries ago, easing themselves toward the very same rest you are drifting toward now. The armor set aside, the sword resting quietly nearby, breath slowing, eyes closing. Some things, it seems, have never changed at all. Number 35. Zen Buddhism shaped much of samurai philosophy. Stillness at the center of everything. Zen's emphasis on presence, discipline, and acceptance of impermanence resonated deeply with samurai culture. Many warriors studied under Zen monks, practicing long hours of seated meditation meant to quiet the mind and sharpen focus. Zen teachings suggested that true mastery, whether of swordsmanship or of life itself, came not from tense effort, but from calm, empty awareness. A mind clouded by fear or desire, they believed, could not move truly, could know. Strike truly, could not live truly. To be still, paradoxically, was often considered the deepest kind of strength. Number 36. Some samurai believed their swords held spirits of their own, not simply metal, something closer to alive. Certain legendary blades were said to possess their own will, their own temperament. Some swords were believed to bring good fortune to their wielders. Others carried darker reputations, said to bring misfortune, or even to hunger for violence beyond their owner's control. Such beliefs blurred gently into folklore and myth. Stories passed quietly between generations, embellished slowly over time. Whether truly believed or simply cherished as legend, these stories gave swords a presence beyond their sharpness. A blade in this world was never entirely just an object. Number 37. Shinto shrines were often built near samurai strongholds for protection. Small guardians, watching quietly. Shinto, Japan's indigenous spiritual tradition, holds that kami, spirits, or divine presences inhabit natural features. Mountains, rivers, ancient trees, and certain sacred spaces. Samurai frequently maintained small shrines near their castles or homes, offering prayers and small gifts for protection and favor before battle. These shrines were often modest, A simple wooden gate, a small stone altar, perhaps a rope of twisted straw marking sacred ground. Even the most powerful warlord might pause here, briefly, hands pressed together, before continuing on his way. Even the fiercest warriors, it seems, still wished quietly for gentler forces to watch over them. Number 38. Some samurai carried protective charms into battle, small, folded, close to the heart, called amamori. These small amulets, often blessed at temples or shrines, were believed to offer protection, luck, or spiritual strength. Samurai sometimes tucked them inside their armor, close to the chest, carrying a small piece of blessing into even the most dangerous moments. These charms were rarely elaborate. A folded paper, a small cloth pouch, a written prayer. But their smallness held a kind of quiet power, a private comfort hidden beneath layers of iron and lacquer. Even the mightiest armor, it turns out, sometimes needed something softer underneath. Number 39. Samurai often prayed before battle, not for victory, but for a good death, a different kind of hope entirely, rather than pleading only for survival. Many samurai prayers focused instead on courage, clarity, and a death that would bring no shame upon their name or family. To die well was, in some ways, considered more important than simply to live. This shift in focus, from surviving to dying honorably, reveals something profound about the samurai worldview. Fear of death was, ideally, replaced by careful attention to how one might meet it, should it come. It is a strange kind of peace, built not around avoiding the end, but around meeting it gently. Number 40. Ghost stories and legends of vengeful spirits were deeply woven into samurai culture. The unseen world was never far away. Tales of yurei, restless spirits unable to find peace after death, were common in Japanese folklore, and samurai were far from immune to such beliefs. Some warriors were said to have been haunted by the spirits of those they had killed, particularly if a death felt unjust or dishonorable. These stories served a quiet moral purpose as much as a spooky one, reminding warriors that violence, even sanctioned violence, carried consequences beyond the physical world. A death taken carelessly might follow a man long after the battle had ended. Even in the dark, it seems, someone was always watching. Number 41. The moon held special significance in samurai poetry and thought. Distant, constant, endlessly returning, countless samurai poems reference the moon. Rising over a battlefield, reflected in still water, glimpsed through the branches of a pine tree during a long night's watch. Its quiet, unchanging presence offered comfort amid the uncertainty of a warrior's life. The moon became, in many ways, a symbol of continuity. Battles ended. Lords rose and fell. Empires shifted. But the moon rose each night regardless, indifferent and beautiful, exactly as it always had, Perhaps that is why so many warriors, tired and far from home, found comfort simply in looking up. Number 42. One of history's most famous swordsmen undertook over 60 duels and was never once defeated. A staggering record, almost unbelievable. This legendary warrior, celebrated as one of history's greatest swordsmen, was said to have fought dozens of duels beginning in his teenage years, using not only traditional swords, but at times improvised weapons, and reportedly never lost a single one. In his later years, he turned away from constant dueling toward quieter pursuits, writing, painting, philosophy, and the slow, careful documentation of swordsmanship as both art and mindset. His most famous written work, Kay discusses strategy, not simply for combat, but for a well-lived, clear-minded life. Even the sharpest blade, it seems, eventually sought stillness. Number 43. One famed samurai leader was born a peasant and rose to command armies. Not born to power, he built it slowly himself, in an era when birth typically determined one's entire future. This remarkable figure rose from extremely humble beginnings to become one of the most powerful men in Japan, eventually helping to unify the country after long decades of civil war. His rise was so unusual that it became legendary in its own right, a story of ambition, cunning, and remarkable skill in reading the shifting tides of both battlefield and court politics. Many samurai of noble birth found themselves, eventually, serving under a man who had once held no rank at all. Sometimes, it seems, history bends its own rules quietly for those patient and clever enough to earn it. Number 44. A different legendary lord was famed for his ruthless efficiency in warfare. Cold, precise, feared. This warlord, instrumental in beginning the long process of unifying a fractured Japan, was known for adopting new technologies, including early firearms, with startling speed, reshaping the nature of battle itself. His tactics were often unconventional, favoring innovation over tradition. Yet even feared leaders left behind gentler traces. Poetry, patronage of the arts, a fondness, according to some accounts, for the tea ceremony's slow, careful rituals, despite a life defined so heavily by conflict. Even the coldest reputations, it seems, sometimes concealed a quieter warmth underneath. Number 45. Another great unifier of Japan was famous for his extraordinary patience, a single, quiet philosophy, often repeated in legend. This leader was said to have compared himself to a bird that would not sing. Rather than force the bird, he claimed he would simply wait until it chose to sing on its own. This philosophy of patience, of allowing events to unfold in their own time rather than forcing outcomes, defined much of his long, careful path to power. His patience eventually helped bring over 2 centuries of relative peace to Japan, ending a long era of civil war, where Others rushed toward conflict. He waited. And in the waiting, he outlasted them all. Sometimes, the fiercest strength looks, from the outside, remarkably like stillness. Number 46. Many famous samurai leaders were also devoted poets, warriors with ink-stained fingers. Far from being separate pursuits, poetry and swordsmanship were often deeply intertwined for accomplished samurai. Composing verse was considered a mark of true refinement, and many powerful lords left behind collections of poems reflecting on nature, loyalty, love, and the passage of time. Some of the most powerful men in Japan's history are remembered today not only for their military campaigns, but for a handful of delicate, carefully chosen words written in quiet moments between battles. It is a gentle thing to imagine. Hands that had held swords, resting instead around a soft writing brush, searching quietly for the right word. Number 47. Some samurai chose to become monks later in life. Armor set aside, robes taken up instead. After years of service, battle, or political upheaval, some samurai chose to retreat from worldly life entirely, shaving their heads and taking up the simple, contemplative life of a Buddhist monk. This was not seen as failure or defeat, but as a natural, respected final chapter in monasteries nestled quietly in mountain forests. Former warriors spent their remaining years in meditation, study, and prayer, trading the clash of battle for the quiet rhythm of temple bells and morning chants. Even the fiercest life, it seems, could soften gently toward its end. Number 48. Many samurai leaders kept detailed personal diaries, private thoughts carefully recorded, far from the battlefield. Many samurai spent quiet evenings writing in personal journals, reflecting on strategy, philosophy, family matters, and even small daily observations about weather or nature. These diaries offer some of history's most intimate glimpses into the samurai mind. Reading them today, one finds surprisingly tender passages. Worry over a sick child, quiet joy at a particularly beautiful sunset. Small private doubts, rarely spoken aloud. The warrior, on paper, often looked remarkably human. Behind every legend, it seems, there was simply a person, writing quietly by candlelight. Number 49. Samurai castles were designed with deliberately confusing layouts to slow an enemy down, to buy precious time. Winding paths, false entrances, narrow gates built at odd angles. All were intentional design choices meant to disorient attackers, forcing them to slow their approach while defenders held higher ground. Some castle grounds were essentially elaborate puzzles built from stone and timber. Even the placement of walls served double purposes: defense, certainly, but also quiet, deliberate beauty. Sloped stone foundations, gently curving roof lines, wide moats reflecting the castle's silhouette in still water. Strength and grace, woven carefully together. A castle in this world was never simply a fortress. It was also, quietly, a kind of poem in stone. Number 50. Some samurai castles used their own wooden structure as a defense against fire arrows, an unexpected kind of protection. While wood might seem vulnerable to fire, certain construction techniques, including thick plaster coatings over wooden frames, helped castles resist both flame and projectile in ways builders carefully calculated over generations of experience and refinement. Castle walls were often layered with white plaster, specifically for this reason, giving many of Japan's surviving castles their striking, luminous white appearance even today. Function, once again, quietly shaping beauty. What looks from a distance like simple elegance was very often careful, hard-won wisdom. Number 51. Castle towns grew up specifically to support samurai life. Whole communities built around a single fortress. Craftsmen, merchants, farmers, and laborers gathered near castles to supply the needs of the samurai class, forging weapons, weaving cloth, growing food, brewing sake. Over time, these gathering places grew into full towns, their layouts often planned deliberately around the castle's defensive needs. Streets in these towns were sometimes built intentionally winding or narrow, another quiet defensive measure, making it harder for potential attackers to move quickly through the settlement. Daily life and military strategy, it turns out, were rarely far apart. An entire town, sometimes, existed simply to keep one quiet fortress standing. Number 52. Samurai were required to live apart from farmers under strict class laws, separation carefully enforced. During long periods of Japan's feudal history, laws formally separated the samurai class from farmers, artisans, and merchants, restricting where each group could live, what they could wear, and even how they could speak to one another. Samurai typically resided in castle towns, while farmers remained on the land they worked. This separation reinforced the samurai's elevated status, but it also created a strange kind of distance. Warriors' living lives almost entirely removed from the fields and labor that sustained them. Even in a small country, it seems, whole worlds could exist quietly apart from one another. Number 53. Samurai were legally permitted to strike down commoners who insulted their honor, a right rarely exercised, but always present, known as kirisut gomen. This legal privilege allowed samurai to respond to serious insults or disrespect from commoners with lethal force, without formal punishment, provided proper procedure and justification could later be demonstrated. In practice, this right was used far less often than legend suggests, as consequences for misuse could still follow. The mere existence of such a law shaped daily interactions profoundly. Commoners learned careful, deferential behavior around samurai. A quiet, constant awareness of rank humming beneath even ordinary conversations. Power, even when rarely used, still shapes the shadows it casts. Number 54. Samurai carried their swords even during peacetime as a visible symbol of status, not for battle, for simply being who they were, long after major warfare had faded from daily life, particularly during the peaceful Edo period. Samurai continued wearing their swords as a matter of law and tradition. The daisho, that paired set of long and short blades, marked them instantly, visually, as members of the ruling warrior class. For many samurai during these peaceful centuries, the sword became less a tool of violence and more a quiet, constant reminder of identity and heritage, an heirloom worn daily rather than a weapon drawn in anger. Sometimes, the things we carry say less about what we do and more about who we are. Number 55. Samurai often kept small gardens even within castle walls, a patch of green amid stone and timber. Even in the most fortified martial environments, small gardens were carefully tended. A handful of flowering trees, a modest pond, perhaps a single perfect stone chosen with great care. These spaces offered warriors a place for quiet reflection, a small pocket of softness within lives otherwise shaped by discipline and duty. Tending such a garden, some samurai believed, cultivated patience and calm in ways that mirrored the discipline of swordsmanship itself. A single misplaced stone could unbalance an entire garden's harmony, much as a single hesitant strike could unbalance a duel. Even warriors, it seems, needed somewhere small and green to simply breathe. Number 56. Many samurai loved cats, a small, gentle detail, easily overlooked. Cats were kept in many samurai households, valued both for their practical role in controlling mice around grain stores and simply for companionship. Some samurai left behind writings expressing genuine tenderness for their feline companions, describing quiet evenings spent with a cat curled nearby. Certain legends even credit cats with saving samurai lives. Tales of a cat's sudden movement, warning a warrior of unseen danger just in time. Whether true or embellished, these stories reveal a softness rarely associated with such a fierce reputation. Even the mightiest warriors, it turns out, could be quietly, completely charmed by a small, purring creature at their feet. Number 57. Samurai horses were treated with enormous care and respect, not simply tools of war, true companions. A samurai's horse was often raised and trained from a young age, specifically for its rider, developing a bond built over years of shared training, travel, and eventually battle. Losing a horse in combat was, for many samurai, a genuine grief, not unlike losing a trusted companion. Horses were groomed carefully, fed well, and in peacetime, sometimes even given small comforts and considerations beyond strict necessity. Some samurai commissioned paintings or poems in memory of particularly beloved horses after their deaths. Loyalty in this world moved in more than one direction. Number 58. Some samurai wrote letters of apology to family members before facing possible death in battle. Tender words before terrible uncertainty, departing for a dangerous campaign. Some samurai took time to write heartfelt letters to parents, spouses, or children, expressing gratitude, apologizing for any past failings, and offering quiet reassurance and love. These letters, when they survive today, offer rare, unguarded glimpses into private emotion, far from the composed, stoic image so often associated with samurai in popular culture. These letters reveal warmth, vulnerability, worry, and deep tenderness. A warrior preparing to risk everything, pausing simply to say, "I love you. I am grateful for you," even amid war's harsh uncertainty. Love, it seems, still found quiet ways to speak. Number 59. Some samurai composed lullabies for their children, soft songs sung by rough, calloused hands, despite lives largely defined by discipline and duty. Many samurai were devoted, tender parents. Some historical accounts describe fathers singing quiet, simple songs to soothe restless children to sleep. Voices softened entirely from the commanding tones used on any battlefield or training ground. It is a small, easily overlooked image, and a deeply human one. A father, armor set aside for the evening, humming gently in a dim room. A small child slowly drifting towards sleep in his arms. Perhaps, in this quiet moment, you are not so very different from that child. All these centuries later. Number 60. Rain was considered both a blessing and a burden by traveling samurai. Necessary, inconvenient, beautiful all at once. Long journeys on foot or horseback left samurai deeply attuned to weather, and rain in particular carried mixed meaning. It nourished crops and filled rivers, essential to daily life. Yet it also slowed travel, dampened supplies, and made muddy roads treacherous underfoot. Many samurai poems reflect on rain with surprising tenderness, finding beauty in its steady rhythm against rooftops, its soft gray blur over distant mountains, even amid the practical hardships it caused. Nature, in this worldview, was rarely simply good or bad. It simply was, and one learned to move gently alongside it. Perhaps tonight, you can imagine that same soft, steady rain falling somewhere far away, and let its rhythm carry you gently toward sleep. Number 61. The age of the true samurai eventually came to a quiet, gradual end. Not a single dramatic battle. A slow fading instead, as Japan modernized rapidly in the latter half of the 19th century. The traditional samurai class was gradually dismantled through sweeping social and military reforms. Swords were eventually banned from public wear. Samurai stipends ended. The rigid class structure that had defined Japanese society for centuries slowly dissolved. For many former samurai, this transition was painful, a loss of identity as much as status. Yet others adapted, becoming businessmen, teachers, government officials, carrying forward the discipline and values of their upbringing into entirely new forms of life. Some endings, it seems, arrive not with a crash, but with a long, slow exhale. Number 62. Some former samurai became teachers of martial arts, preserving old traditions in new forms, old skills gently reshaped for a changing world. As formal samurai status faded, many practitioners of sword fighting, archery, and other martial disciplines began teaching these skills not as tools of war, but as paths toward discipline, focus, and personal growth. This shift helped give rise to many martial arts still practiced and cherished around worlds today. What had once been preparation for life or death combat slowly transformed into meditative, almost gentle practice. The sharp edge remained, in a sense, but the purpose softened considerably. Sometimes, the old ways find new reasons simply to continue existing. Number 63. Samurai armor and swords became treasured family heirlooms rather than practical tools, passed down generation after generation, long after their use in actual combat had ended. Many samurai families continued preserving ancestral armor and swords, displaying them during special occasions, passing them carefully from parent to child as symbols of heritage and pride rather than instruments of war. Museums today display many of these preserved pieces, their lacquer still gleaming, their blades still sharp, carrying forward the memory of lives lived centuries ago. Objects, it seems, can hold memory long after the hands that once used them have gone quiet. What once cut through battle now simply, quietly, tells a story. Number 64. Samurai ideals deeply influenced modern Japanese culture, long after the samurai class itself disappeared. Echoes still present today. Concepts of discipline, respect, loyalty, and mindful presence, so central to samurai philosophy, continued shaping Japanese social values and etiquette long after actual samurai had vanished from daily life. Traces can still be found today in everything from business culture to traditional arts, martial arts, tea ceremony, calligraphy, and even certain forms of etiquette carry forward small fragments of that old warrior discipline, quietly woven into modern life without most people even realizing the connection. The way of the warrior, it seems, never entirely disappeared. It simply grew quieter and settled gently into the background of everyday life. Number 65. Popular imagination often exaggerates or simplifies the true samurai experience. Legend polished smoother than history ever truly was. Films, novels, and popular culture have shaped a version of the samurai that leans heavily toward dramatic sword duels and constant, glorious battle. The reality, as we've wandered through tonight, was often far quieter. Long stretches of peace, careful bureaucracy, poetry, gardening, and simple daily discipline. This isn't to diminish the legend. Rather, it deepens it. The true samurai experience, textured with both extraordinary violence and extraordinary stillness, offers something far more interesting than simplified myth ever could. Sometimes, the quiet truth is more beautiful than the loud legend built around it. Number 66. A samurai's sheathed sword was considered as meaningful as a drawn one, stillness holding its own quiet power. The moment just before a blade left its sheath, called the aijutsu, was considered by many masters to be as important as the strike itself. A sword resting quietly, ready, but unused, represented restraint, discipline, and awareness. Qualities considered just as valuable as raw skill in combat. Some of the greatest swordsmen in history were said to win duels without ever drawing their blade at all. Their sheer presence and calm confidence enough to end a conflict before it truly began. Sometimes, the greatest strength is simply the choice to remain still. Number 67. Snow was often described in samurai writings as a symbol of purity and quiet renewal. Soft, white, silencing the world beneath it. Many samurai poems describe snow falling gently over rooftops, over gardens, over distant mountains, blanketing the world in a hush that felt almost sacred. Snow softened even the harshest landscapes, turning battle-worn regions briefly beautiful and still. For warriors accustomed to noise, violence, and constant vigilance, snow offered a rare, welcome quiet. A reminder, perhaps, that even the harshest seasons eventually soften, eventually grow gentle again. Imagine, if you like, that same soft snow falling now, slowly, silently, just outside your window. Number 68. Fireflies appear frequently in samurai-era poetry, symbolizing fleeting beauty and gentle longing. Small lights, blinking softly in warm summer darkness. Watching fireflies drift lazily above rice paddies or along quiet riverbanks was a beloved evening pastime, even for the busiest samurai households. Their brief, glowing light became a favorite poetic image, symbolizing both the fleeting nature of beauty and quiet, tender longing. Some samurai even kept fireflies briefly in small cages during summer evenings, releasing them again after enjoying their soft glow for a short while. Unwilling to keep something so delicate for very long, perhaps you can imagine that same soft glow now, drifting gently just beyond the edge of sleep. Number 69. Lanterns lit the paths of samurai walking home after long days of duty. Small, warm points of light in the growing dark. Paper lanterns, glowing softly with candlelight, lined pathways in castle towns and villages. Guiding samurai and commoners alike safely home as evening deepened into night. Their gentle, flickering light softened the darkness, without banishing it entirely. There is something deeply comforting in imagining these small lights, scattered like fallen stars along quiet streets, each one marking a doorway, a homecoming, a moment of rest finally within reach after a long day. Let yourself imagine now walking slowly beneath such lanterns, each step bringing you closer to rest. Number 70. Many samurai believed dreams carried important spiritual messages, not simply rest, something closer to guidance. Dreams were often taken seriously in samurai culture, sometimes interpreted as messages from ancestors, deities, or one's own deeper intuition. Before important decisions or battles, some samurai paid careful attention to their dreams, searching for guidance hidden within. Certain dream images were considered especially auspicious. A hawk, an eggplant, Mount Fuji itself rising serene and snow-capped in the dream's soft landscape. To dream of these things was considered a particularly good omen for the days ahead. Perhaps tonight, your own dreams might carry something quietly good toward you as well. Number 71. Bamboo groves were treasured for their sound as much as their sight. A soft, constant whisper, moving gently overhead, wind moving through bamboo, created a distinctive, gentle rustling sound, deeply beloved throughout samurai-era Japan. Many gardens and temple grounds deliberately included bamboo groves, specifically for this soothing, whispering quality. A natural music requiring no instrument at all. Some samurai retreats and meditation halls were built purposefully near bamboo groves, allowing this soft, constant sound to accompany quiet study or seated meditation, filling silence without ever truly breaking it. Imagine now that same gentle rustling, moving softly somewhere just above you. Number 72. Autumn leaves carried deep symbolic weight in samurai-era art and poetry. Red and gold, drifting slowly toward the ground. The changing colors of autumn, particularly the deep reds of maple leaves, were beloved throughout Japan for their fleeting, dramatic beauty, arriving each year only to fall away again within a few short weeks. This impermanence resonated deeply with samurai philosophy's broader focus on life's brief, beautiful nature. Viewing autumn leaves, known as Mamajigari, became its own beloved seasonal tradition. Families and warriors alike traveling to particularly beautiful groves simply to sit quietly and watch the leaves drift slowly down. Some of the most profound beauty, it seems, exists specifically because it cannot and does not last. Number 73. Hot springs offered rare moments of complete relaxation for weary samurai. Steam rising softly into cool mountain air. Japan's natural hot springs, called onsen, offered samurai a rare chance for complete physical rest after long campaigns or journeys. Warm mineral waters soothed tired muscles, and the simple act of soaking quietly, surrounded by steam and mountain scenery, offered a kind of peace difficult to find elsewhere. Some samurai lords maintained private onsen, retreats specifically for recovering from injury, or simply resting between long periods of duty. Even the fiercest warriors, it seems, needed somewhere warm and quiet to simply let go of tension entirely. Imagine that same warm water now, gently loosening every remaining bit of tension from your body. Number 74. Fog rolling over mountain passes was both feared and admired by traveling samurai. Mysterious, concealing, strangely beautiful, thick fog could make mountain travel dangerous, hiding steep drops and narrow paths from view. Yet many samurai writings also describe fog with genuine wonder. The way it softened harsh landscapes into something dreamlike, mountains appearing to float gently above a sea of soft gray mist. Some of the most famous Japanese landscape paintings from this era capture exactly this quality. Mountains emerging faintly from fog, their edges blurred and uncertain, beautiful precisely because they refused to be seen too clearly. Let your own thoughts grow just as soft and uncertain now, gently blurring at the edges. Number 75. Silence before battle was considered its own form of readiness. No shouting, no boasting, only breath, rather than loud displays of bravado. Many samurai commanders valued calm, quiet composure in the moments before combat. Soldiers were often trained to control their breathing, steady their heartbeat, and enter a state of clear, focused stillness rather than reactive excitement or fear. This quiet discipline, cultivated through years of meditation and mental training, was considered essential to fighting effectively. A calm mind, they believed, moved faster and more precisely than an anxious one ever could. Perhaps that same quiet stillness might settle gently over you now, as your own breathing slows. Number 76. Samurai were taught to view failure as part of mastery, not the opposite of it, falling down, simply another part of learning to stand. Martial arts training for young samurai involved countless repetitions, countless small failures, countless corrections. Rather than viewing mistakes with shame, many teachers encouraged students to see each failure as necessary, even valuable, a small stepping stone on a much longer path toward skill. This patient, forgiving approach to learning extended beyond swordsmanship into calligraphy, poetry, and daily conduct as well. Perfection was never expected immediately. Only steady, humble, patient effort. Perhaps there is something worth carrying from this, gently, into your own life as well. Number 77. Samurai believed true strength included the wisdom to know when not to fight. Restraint valued as highly as skill. Many samurai texts emphasize that a truly skilled warrior sought first to avoid unnecessary conflict, using diplomacy, patience, or simple withdrawal whenever possible. Violence was considered a final resort, not a first instinct, reserved for situations where no other path remained. This philosophy stood in quiet contrast to popular, more aggressive images of the samurai. True mastery, many believed, lay in calm judgment as much as in swordsmanship, in knowing precisely when strength should remain sheathed. Sometimes, the wisest choice is simply choosing softness instead. Number 78. Some samurai practiced calligraphy as a form of moving meditation. Ink, brush, breath, all moving together. The careful, deliberate strokes required for beautiful Japanese calligraphy demanded the same calm focus valued in swordsmanship. Some samurai considered the two practices deeply connected, both requiring complete presence, steady breath, and a mind free from distraction or hesitation. A single hesitant brushstroke, like a single hesitant sword strike, could ruin an otherwise beautiful effort entirely. Both required years of quiet, patient practice before true grace could emerge. Even ink, moved slowly and carefully across paper, could hold its own kind of quiet discipline. Number 79. Certain swords were passed down for generations as symbols of an entire family's honor, heirlooms, older than anyone living to remember their origin. Some of Japan's most treasured swords passed through 10, 20, even more generations of a single family line, each new bearer entrusted with protecting not just the blade itself, but the accumulated honor and memory attached to it. Losing such a sword, whether through theft, defeat, or simple carelessness, was considered a profound family tragedy. These swords often traveled through remarkable, turbulent history, surviving fires, wars, and centuries of upheaval, carried carefully from one generation's hands into the next. Some things, carried gently enough, managed to outlast entire centuries. Number 80. Not all samurai wielded their swords with violence in mind. Some carried them simply as quiet reminders. For many samurai living during long eras of peace, their sword became far more symbolic than practical. A quiet daily reminder of discipline, heritage, and identity, rather than an instrument they ever expected to use in true combat. The blade remained sharp, out of respect and tradition, even if it was never drawn in anger. There is something gentle in this thought, that a tool built for violence could, over time, become instead simply a quiet companion, a reminder worn daily of who one strove to be. Perhaps strength, carried gently enough, need not always be used to matter. Number 81. Samurai households often kept records of family history stretching back centuries. Names carefully preserved, stories gently passed down, genealogical records called kake traced samurai family lines, sometimes back 10 generations or more, documenting births, marriages, notable deeds, and honors earned. These records were treasured, protected carefully across generations, considered nearly as valuable as any sword or piece of armor, Reading these old records today offers a strange, quiet comfort. Proof that ordinary lives, filled with small joys and small sorrows, continued steadily beneath even history's loudest, most dramatic events, somewhere carefully preserved. Your own quiet story is being written too, one gentle day at a time. Number 82. Rivers held deep symbolic meaning in samurai philosophy, representing the constant, gentle passage of time, always moving, never quite the same twice, just as a river's water is never truly identical from moment to moment. Samurai philosophy often reflected on life's constant, gentle change. Nothing remained fixed. Seasons shifted. Power shifted. Life itself moved steadily forward, much like water flowing quietly towards some distant, unseen sea. Sitting beside a river became, for some samurai, its own quiet meditation, watching water endlessly pass by, a small, steady reminder that all things, difficult or joyful, eventually moved onward as well. Let your own thoughts, too, move gently onward now, like water drifting slowly downstream. Number 83. Certain samurai were famous not for battle, but for their extraordinary kindness, strength expressed through gentleness instead, while legend often celebrates fierce warriors. Historical records also preserve stories of samurai renowned for compassion, caring for injured enemies after battle, offering food and shelter to struggling farmers during difficult harvests, treating servants and commoners with unusual warmth and respect. These quieter legacies rarely receive the same dramatic attention as tales of duels and conquest. Yet, they represent an equally important thread within the broader tapestry of samurai history. Sometimes, true strength looks far less like a sword and far more like a gentle, open hand. Number 84. Samurai were taught that true courage included the willingness to admit fear, not the absence of fear, something braver than that, rather than expecting warriors to feel nothing at all. Many samurai teachings acknowledged fear as a natural, unavoidable part of facing danger. True courage, they believed, was not fearlessness, but the willingness to act with discipline and purpose despite fear's quiet, persistent presence. This distinction offered a surprisingly gentle, human understanding of bravery, one that made space for vulnerability rather than demanding its complete erasure. Perhaps, wherever you carry your own quiet fears, there is room for this same gentle courage too. Number 85. Some samurai kept small collections of poetry by their bedside, words waiting quietly nearby for sleepless hours during long nights, whether from worry, physical discomfort, or simply a restless mind. Some samurai turned to poetry collections kept close at hand, reading a few quiet lines by candlelight until sleep finally, gently arrived. These small books, worn soft from repeated handling, offered comfort through familiar, beloved words. verses about moonlight, falling snow, distant mountains, and quiet rivers, gently guiding restless minds back toward calm. Perhaps tonight, these very words are doing something quite similar for you. Number 86. Incense was often burned during quiet evening hours in samurai households. A soft curl of scented smoke, rising slowly upward. Incense, made from fragrant woods and resins, was burned not just for pleasant scent, but as part of quiet evening ritual, marking a gentle transition from the busy activity of daytime toward the stillness of night. Certain scents were even associated with particular moods or seasons. Watching incense smoke curl and drift slowly upward, disappearing gradually into open air, became its own small, contemplative practice, a quiet reminder of impermanence, of gentle, unhurried change. Imagine, if it helps you settle further, that same soft curl of scented smoke drifting slowly through your own quiet room right now. Number 87. Samurai valued the sound of temple bells as a marker of time's gentle passing. A single deep tone, rolling softly across evening air. Temple bells rang at set hours throughout the day, marking time not with urgency, but with slow, deliberate ceremony. Their low, resonant tone could be heard drifting across entire towns and valleys. A shared, communal rhythm structuring daily life for samurai and commoner alike. Many samurai found particular comfort in the evening bell, its deep tone signaling the close of another day, an invitation to finally set down the day's burdens and rest. Perhaps you can imagine that same low, gentle tone now, marking the quiet close of your own day as well. Number 88. Some samurai wrote about the specific comfort of returning home after long absences. A familiar doorway, a familiar smell, familiar quiet. Extended military campaigns or diplomatic journeys could keep samurai away from home for months, sometimes years. Writings from this era describe the particular, deep comfort of finally returning, recognizing familiar rooms, familiar gardens, the gentle relief of finally, truly resting in a space that felt entirely one's own. This longing for home and the deep comfort of finally returning to it offers a very human thread running quietly beneath even the most dramatic historical events. Wherever you are resting tonight, let yourself feel that same quiet, familiar comfort now. Number 89. Certain samurai were remembered for their gentle sense of humor. Not every legend was entirely serious. Historical anecdotes occasionally preserve small moments of levity. A samurai's witty remark during a tense negotiation. A playful joke shared among soldiers during a quiet evening at camp. A lord known for his surprisingly warm, easy laughter despite his fearsome battlefield reputation. These small, humanizing details are easily lost beneath grander, more dramatic historical narratives. Why? Yet they remind us that even amid centuries of conflict and formality, warmth, playfulness, and simple laughter still found their quiet way through. Even legends, it turns out, sometimes simply enjoyed a good, gentle laugh. Number 90. Fireside stories were a common evening activity among samurai retainers. Voices low, firelight flickering softly across tired faces. During long campaigns or quiet winter evenings, samurai gathered around fires to share stories. Legends of famous warriors, ghost tales, memories of home, or simply quiet conversation meant to pass the evening gently before sleep. These small, informal gatherings offered comfort and camaraderie, a brief warmth shared among people otherwise separated by rigid hierarchy and formal duty. Around a fire, if only briefly, everyone was simply tired and simply human. Perhaps tonight, you too are gathered somewhere warm and soft, listening quietly as these final stories draw gently to their close. Number 91. The wisdom of the samurai often pointed toward acceptance, not resistance, not fighting against life's uncertainty, moving gently with it instead, rather than struggling constantly against change, loss, or difficulty. Much of samurai philosophy encouraged a calm, graceful acceptance of life's uncertainties. This wasn't passive resignation, but active, mindful presence, meeting whatever arrived with steady, open composure. This idea echoes gently through so much of what we've wandered through tonight. The falling cherry blossom, the drifting cloud, the passing river, the fading autumn leaf, all of it pointing toward the same soft truth. Nothing lasts forever. And somehow, gently understood, that becomes its own quiet comfort. Number 92. Samurai gardens were often designed to be viewed slowly, one small section at a time, never all at once, always unfolding gradually. Garden paths were deliberately winding, encouraging visitors to move slowly, pausing frequently to notice small details. A particular stone, a single flowering branch, a quiet reflection in still water. The garden revealed itself gradually, patiently, refusing to be rushed. This too mirrors so much of what we've explored tonight. History itself unfolding slowly, one quiet detail at a time, rather than all at once, rather than rushed. Perhaps that is exactly how tonight has felt as well. Slow, gentle, unfolding softly, moment by careful moment. Number 93. Even the most feared warriors were, in the end, simply trying to live meaningful lives. Not so very different, underneath it all, from anyone else. Strip away the armor, the legends, the centuries of embellishment, and what remains is remarkably human. People trying to act with honor, trying to protect those they loved, trying to find meaning and beauty amid uncertainty and hardship. This, perhaps, is the quiet, lasting gift of the samurai story. Not simply tales of swords and battle, but a deeply human meditation on how to live thoughtfully, how to face difficulty with grace, how to find beauty even in life's most fleeting moments. Perhaps in some small way, that same quiet wisdom might rest gently with you tonight as well. Number 94. Many samurai believed the true test of character came not in grand battles, but in small, everyday moments. How one treated a servant, how one spoke to a child, how one handled a small, private disappointment. These quiet, unremarkable moments, rarely recorded in history, were considered by many to reveal a person's true character far more accurately than any dramatic battlefield deed ever could. Grand gestures were easy, in a sense. Small, consistent kindness was harder and more telling. There is something deeply comforting in this thought, especially now, in this quiet, unremarkable moment of your own evening. Perhaps character is built exactly here, in small moments like this one, in choosing rest, in choosing gentleness toward yourself. Number 95. Samurai believed that a calm ending was the truest measure of a well-lived life. Not how one began, how one gently closed. More than victories, more than titles, more than wealth accumulated across a lifetime. Many samurai believed that the manner of one's ending, calm, dignified, at peace, was the truest reflection of a life lived well. This belief shaped everything we've wandered through tonight. The careful preparation, the quiet acceptance, the gentle poems written in final moments. All of it pointing toward the same soft idea that endings, approached gently, need not be feared. Perhaps tonight, too, can end exactly this way. Calm, gentle, at peace. Number 96. The image of a samurai resting quietly beneath a blooming cherry tree remains one of history's most enduring pictures of peace. Armor set aside, sword resting nearby, petals drifting softly down. This image, appearing again and again throughout centuries of Japanese art and poetry, captures something essential about the deeper samurai spirit. Not constant conflict, but the quiet, hard-won ability to simply rest, when rest was finally, gently available. Picture it now, if you like. Soft grass beneath you, pale pink petals drifting slowly through warm air. Nothing urgent, nothing demanding your attention. Only quiet, only stillness, only rest. Number 97. Every samurai, no matter how fierce their reputation, eventually needed simply to sleep, just as you do right now, beneath armor, beneath legend, beneath centuries of story and myth. Every single samurai who ever lived experienced this same simple, universal need to lie down at day's end, to let their breathing slow, to release the day's tension, and drift gently into rest. In this quiet way, you share something with every warrior we've wandered through tonight. The same soft need for rest, the same quiet relief of finally letting go. Number 98. The way of the warrior, in the end, was also always the way of rest, not opposites, two halves of the very same whole, discipline and stillness. action and quiet reflection. Battle and the tea ceremony's slow, careful pour. The samurai understood, perhaps better than most, that true strength required both effort and rest, both readiness and release. Tonight, you have wandered gently through the effort, the discipline, the striving. Now, it is time simply for the rest. Number 99. History remembers the samurai's swords, but it also, quietly, remembers their stillness. Both belong equally to the story. We began tonight with images of armor and steel. We end, instead, with images of moonlight, falling snow, quiet gardens, and gentle rest. Perhaps that is the truest, softest lesson this history has to offer, that even the fiercest warriors, the most legendary figures, the sharpest blades ever forged, all eventually, gently, returned to stillness. Number 100. And now, so can you. The story is finished. The gate is closing softly behind us. Let the armor fall away. Let the swords rest quietly in their sheaths. Let the whole long history we've wandered through tonight settle gently around you, like mist over a quiet valley at dusk. You have nowhere left to be, and nothing left to hold, only rest. And so, gently, our story comes to its quiet close. We've wandered a long way together tonight, through castle gates and quiet gardens, through armor and silk, through swords and soft brushstrokes of ink, through legendary warriors who, underneath all their legend, simply wanted to live well, and love well, and eventually rest well. If there is one thing worth carrying with you from tonight, let it be this. Strength was never only about the sword. It was also about stillness, about patience, about knowing when to let go. You have been so kind to spend this quiet time with me, here in the dark, drifting slowly through old stories together. If this channel has brought you even a little comfort, a like or a subscribe would mean more than you know, though truly, there is no rush. That can wait for morning. For now, there is only this: your breath, slow and even, your body heavy and warm, the last soft echoes of temple bells fading gently into silence. Let the samurai's long journey end here, tonight, exactly as it always eventually did. In quiet, in stillness, in rest. Sleep well, and I'll see you next time, here on Historical Narratives.